What's up, and welcome to the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, manifestation expert, money mindset and fulfillment coach, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur. Come sit with me while I spill the real tea on what it's like to practice using intentional manifestation, demystify all of the woo-woo and confusing bullshit that comes along with creating the life of your dreams, and give you a realistic view of what it's like to be on a personal, spiritual, and professional growth journey. The goal of this podcast is to support and guide you towards manifesting all of your dreams, shed light on the things that people are too scared to talk about, and encourage you to become the person who gets to have it all, be it all, and do it all. I am so happy you are here. Let's fucking do this thing. What's up, and welcome back to another episode of the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. It is Christmas Eve as I am recording this, and I am back in Colorado up in the mountains with my family for the holidays, and it feels pretty dang good to be home. It is nice and relaxing, but first thing that happened as soon as I got back to Colorado is I got some sort of stomach bug, and I was so sick for a few days. So that is why there hasn't been a podcast episode released in the past week, but here we are, we're doing the damn thing. And what I want to do today and talk about today is the top 3 lessons that I learned in 2021, because as we all know, the year is ending in a week, right? Isn't it New Year's Eve next Friday? Yeah, 1 week till the last day of 2021, and this year has been hands down one of the biggest years in terms of internal growth for me and external growth as well. All of the things that have shifted and changed, but it's really come from 3 major things that I learned over this past year. So that's what we're going to be diving into today, and we'll just get straight into it. So my top 3 lessons of 2021, first one was all about vulnerability. And this is something that I thought that I had dealt with, was healed from a long time ago when I first started doing all of my inner work, because I felt vulnerable enough to show up on my Instagram story and to coach and share my story with the world and all of these different things. And what I found in my experience of really understanding what vulnerability looked like for me this year in my life was that I was being vulnerable in those experiences by sharing my story, by getting on Instagram and talking on my stories, by doing all of these things that I had done to share with the world and with the people in my life what I had experienced and what my healing journey had been like thus far. But it was very scripted vulnerable. It was vulnerable from the lens of I could still sound right. I could still have complete control on it. I wasn't showing any of the not so pretty sides of myself. And that is a defense mechanism that I put up a long time ago that I found through my healing journey this past year, is because I always felt as though I wasn't worthy unless things looked pretty on the surface, unless it looked like I had my shit together. I had the money, I had the car, I had all of the things that I thought I needed in order to be seen as worthy by other people and also feel worthy inside of myself. And keeping myself in that kind of circumstance really kept me from being fully connected with the people in my life and having genuine human connection and human interaction, because I was never allowing people to see the not so pretty sides of myself. And over this past year, stepping into this place of learning how to be vulnerable, and vulnerable in the way of I'm showing up, crying my eyes out, not having the solution, angry, frustrated, not put together whatsoever, and owning the fact that I didn't have my shit together for the first time in my life was one of the biggest weights off of my shoulders that I think I had ever felt, although it felt really, really uncomfortable at the get-go. I remember a conversation that I had with my best friend back at the very beginning of the year when I was sharing with her that I didn't want to live together anymore. I wanted to live on my own because it was really challenging for me to separate working, running my business, having a personal life, and socializing with her all in the same place under the same roof. And that conversation, even though it sounds so silly now, felt like the scariest thing to me because that was vulnerable in a way that I had never been before, because I was always trying to manipulate circumstances so that I could either know exactly how I could control them or be in a situation where I was just putting my wants and my needs to the side so that I could keep the other person comfortable, because I was so fearful of the confrontation that could potentially arise from it. And in that conversation with her, I remember sitting on the ground, looking up at her. She was sitting on the couch and I was shaking like a chihuahua. And I told her, and afterwards she was just like, "Is that it?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay. Are you good?" I was like, "Yep." She's like, "Okay, yeah, no, we're good." And that's like one of the moments I'm never gonna forget, because that was truly one of the first times that I feel as though I'd allowed myself to be vulnerable in a way that I had no clue what the outcome was going to be like, and I wasn't trying to control or manipulate the outcome to be something that benefited me or that kept the other person comfortable. And by giving myself permission to have this conversation, this one conversation, that spiraled and that triggered so many more opportunities for me to show up vulnerably, show up not so pretty, show up unscripted, and put myself out there in a way that felt so much more raw and expressed than what I had been showing up like before. And for any of you listening that resonate with this, I want you to know that it's not going to feel comfortable to get vulnerable at first. And if you've never been put in a situation where you have to be super vulnerable, or if this kind of like keep it all together, have your shit together, mask and appeal sounds like something that you do as well, know that you are totally capable of breaking free from that. And by breaking free from that, you're stepping into alignment with your heart center. You're stepping into alignment with your truth and what is true for you. And as you do that, you're naturally raising your set point of attraction. You're lifting your vibration into a place where you are naturally attracting and manifesting more of the things that you want into your life just by showing up as the most authentic version of you. And I know that that's like a hot word. The most authentic version of you, or like a hot phrase, and everybody says that. But I think it's really important to think about what that actually means, because a lot of us say we are showing up as the most authentic version of ourselves. That's what I said to myself for so long, until I gave myself permission to really look at what was there and what was authentic. And it wasn't fucking pretty. Some of it was, but a lot of it wasn't. And we don't have to express ourselves in this way of like being like that girl. The TikTok trend and like, I don't know, everything out there on social media of like being that girl who has her shit all together, who has the beautiful morning routine, who gets ready, who looks beautiful every single day, who is great at communicating every single time she has a conversation with people. Like, we are not always that girl. And when you give yourself permission to get to know the not so pretty sides of yourself and accept them and allow them to be seen by the people in your life that are there and want to support you, that builds an even stronger connection with those people. It builds an even stronger, genuine connection, as well as more acceptance for self and love for self and trust in self, that you can show up as any version of yourself, that you don't always have to be this perfectly scripted and wear the mask of everything is fine and everything's put together, and really trust that you can accept yourself no matter how you are showing up, no matter how things play out. And that's been one of the most beautiful gifts that I've been able to give to myself this year. So That is the first one, which also ties into the second one, which is trust. And when I say trust, I really mean trust in myself. Over the past two and a bit years since I have been on this healing journey and this inner work journey and having my business and doing what I do, all of these different things, being the version of myself that I am now, I have built a ton of trust in the universe and in the path and the way that my life is going. I have absolutely no doubt in the fact that best case scenario is the inevitable for my life, no matter what it looks like to get to that place and the lessons that I have to learn in order to get there. But something that I really was challenged by at the beginning of the year was trusting myself and trusting that no matter what the circumstance was, that I was going to be okay. And I've mentioned this on past podcast episodes, and trigger warning for anybody who potentially gets triggered by this topic, but we're going to be talking a little bit about suicide. And the reason that I have had such troubles with trusting myself in the past is because when I was 16 years old, I had my first suicidal thoughts, which I talked about in the first podcast episode. And from this experience onwards until doing some deep healing trauma work this past year and clearing out the energetic and emotional energy that was still surrounding that sort of time of my life, I was so fearful of taking myself out of my comfort zone because I didn't trust that I wouldn't start to feel suicidal again. And this is something up until this past year I experienced at least once a year, was a period of time where I was having suicidal thoughts and was so scared and really just felt as though like this was the inevitable for my life if I wasn't going to be able to like figure it out and get to a place where I was clearing out all of the energy associated to that. And working through this piece of my journey and my limiting beliefs and my trauma this past year was one of the most emotional and scary to a certain extent. It doesn't feel scary anymore, but it was scary in the moment of really feeling through to release all of the energy that was still stuck inside of my body and clearing all of that out. And now putting myself in the position of understanding that I feel so capable, so trusting of myself, and no matter what the circumstances, and especially like with this huge move that I made to New York City, this was something that before I made the decision and before I did this trauma healing work over, when was it? Back in the spring, I was super fearful of, because the last time that I moved to Boise, Idaho, and I got up there and immediately spiraled and started to have tons of suicidal thoughts. And being able to clear all of that out before I moved to New York was so huge, because that was the reason that I always held myself back from making that move. I was so fearful that I was going to make the move and feel this way again. And coming into this place this year of trusting myself so fully looked like me taking myself out of my comfort zone and doing things that I had never done before, and intentionally putting myself into circumstances where I had to slow down and connect with myself, connect with my breath, connect with my heart, with my soul, with my mind, and intentionally and deliberately tell myself that I trusted myself. And as I continue to put myself into circumstances like that and continue to build up this muscle, the easier and easier it felt to put myself in uncomfortable circumstances. And the easier and easier it felt to jump into the deep end, throw myself into the deep end and do things that I had never done before, because every single time I was choosing to do something like that, and I started small, it would start with like literally going to the grocery store and looking at different things and trusting my decision that everything that I was buying is what I needed. or taking a different route than I normally would and saying that I trust my decisions. And as you do that, as you are putting yourself into circumstances and deliberately telling yourself that you trust the decisions that you are making, you're creating more associations inside of the subconscious mind to understand that trusting yourself is something that you can do. Because when we start to form a belief, say like this belief of, I trust my decisions, the more that you then deliberately feed yourself evidence of the fact that you trust yourself, then the more the subconscious mind is going to register that as true and then actively look for evidence in the back burner of your day-to-day life to continue to prove that belief to be true. So this is a huge piece of what I went through this past year, was really just feeding myself a ton of evidence for why I trusted myself and intentionally putting myself into uncomfortable circumstances so that I could fully build this trust back up within myself. And I remember having a conversation with one of my coaches earlier in the year, just being like, I had no clue it was possible to feel this connected to myself and feel this much trust inside of myself, because it was never something that I had experienced in the past and never something that I was willing to push myself to get to, because I was always so fearful of my emotions and of my thoughts. But really learning that it's okay and that I can trust myself with my emotions and with my thoughts, that I've been able to come out the other side of it and feel so completely grounded. And even in moments where things feel overwhelming or I am stressed out or whatever's going on, I still have this grounded sense of connection to myself and trust in myself and trust in the universe that everything is working out exactly as it's supposed to, and that no matter what the circumstance is, I can trust myself within it. So that is the third one. And one more little thing on that, for anybody who deals with fear, anxiety, lack of trust with themselves, one of the biggest things that I can suggest that you do is start to recite safety affirmations to yourself. And one of my favorite safety affirmations is that my faith is greater than my fears. And I used to repeat that over and over and over to myself in my head all day long during the times that I was experiencing suicidal thoughts. And it brought me back down to a grounded sense of self during that time. And now it's taken on a completely different meaning with where I'm at and how much I do trust myself and where I am now at in my journey. But any sort of safety affirmations that you can recite to yourself: I'm safe to be here, I'm safe in my body, I'm safe to experience this, I'm safe to have my emotions, whatever it is, all of those things are going to help you create those associations inside of the subconscious mind, like I was talking about. So anybody who experienced fear, anxiety, depression, anything, if you're experiencing suicidal thoughts as well, there's going to be resources down below of some different ways that you can get support. But know that by starting to tell yourself these different affirmations and creating this internal safety, you're going to start to create more internal trust, which then will help you bring yourself to the position that you want to be in. And the third and not final lesson, but of the top 3 lessons that I've learned in 2021 was learning how to tap into my feminine energy. And this kind of taps into what I was just talking about with creating internal safety. Up into this past year of my life, never felt safe enough to fully embrace my feminine energy and show up as the feminine being that I am. I always was wearing this masculine mask. I was the girl who always had her shit together, who, even when I didn't, was always holding it together, was always so structured, was always calling the shots, who's just like running the fucking show. I scared off so many men by being in my masculine energy, but that is a topic for another podcast episode. But this year, by creating that internal safety that I was talking about in the last one with trust and really getting into this safe space inside of my body, it's allowed me to take that masculine mask off and really tap into my feminine energy, which has felt so freeing and so expansive to show up as this free, flowy, emotional, expressive, messy, excited, playful woman that I am, and like really tap into the way that life just turns me on. Because prior to this, I always felt as though I wasn't able to show up as that girl. I kind of needed to keep it on lock, keep myself a bit quieter, a bit smaller than I wanted to be, because I was fearful of, one, my emotion, and two, just like showing up as anything that was less than grounded. So expressing myself and being messy and being playful and silly and all of those things just didn't feel like something that I could do. And now really being in this place of like tapping into the feminine energy and allowing myself to lead and guide from my feminine energy, I feel so much more inspired. And I give myself permission constantly to listen to and follow my inspiration and follow my intuition, because that intuitive energy is so feminine. And this isn't like gender role, feminine and masculine, and I will absolutely do another podcast episode on the feminine and masculine energy, but this is like the energy of you, who you are at your core. And men can be feminine, men can be masculine, women can be masculine, women can be feminine. And for me, being feminine is definitely what I've wanted to do, but never felt safe enough to do. So by coming into this energy, I have had so much more fun. I've played so much more. I've listened to my inspiration and allowed myself to go on trips in ways that I've never done before, and to run my business in ways that I didn't know was possible in like this free, flowy, fun, inspired way, as opposed to a very like heads down, structured, nose to the grind kind of way that at one point definitely felt like I burned myself out on. But it's just been such a beautiful coming home to self, a homecoming of coming back to the essence of who I truly am. And through it, I have manifested literally every single thing that I intended to manifest this year. And I'll do that in my next podcast episode. I'll share with all of you everything that I manifested this past year, because the list is fucking extensive. It's like beyond words how freaking incredible it's been to be able to tap into just this feminine energy that I have at my core and magnetize my manifestations just by being me, just by getting to the core of who I was and not constantly feeling like I was having to work so damn hard for it or hustle my ass off and have like this uphill battle towards receiving all of the things that I wanted. By truly just stepping into this energy and allowing myself to be open and be receptive, so much more flow, so much more ease. Everything just showed up in my life in a way that I didn't even know was possible. So that is that. I definitely will do another podcast episode, like I said, on the feminine and masculine energy. But I would be super curious to know what your top 3 lessons of 2021 have been. So if you're listening to this podcast episode and you feel like you want to share with me what your top 3 lessons of 2021 have been, send me a message on Instagram. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what it is that you have gone through and experienced this past year, and the top 3 takeaways that you've had from 2021. And yeah, shoot me a message. I respond to all of my DMs on Instagram. And if you also want to connect with me over on Facebook, there will be a link to all of that down below in the show notes. But I hope all of you have a safe and wonderful holiday season, whatever you are doing, whether you're with family, whether you're alone, whether you're with friends, whether you're working, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're listening to this podcast episode, I wish you so much joy, so much abundance, and so much love. And I am so grateful for you listening. Oh my gosh, thank you for listening to today's episode. I am so grateful to have these no bullshit talks with you. If you enjoyed today's episode or the podcast as a whole, please spread the love by leaving me a review on iTunes or sharing the podcast with others. This is how I will be able to spread more of these good vibes and be able to make more of an impact on the lives of others. And if you're not already part of all of the goodness and communities that I have to offer, check out the show notes. I have links to the different ways that I can support you on your manifestation journey and help you live a life full of more money, fulfillment, and freedom. But that is all for now. So big love and hugs, and I will chat with you soon, babe.